There's a path here, easy enough to miss if you're not looking for it. It doesn't lead anywhere important, not in the way people measure such things. No signs, no landmarks worth mentioning, just a narrow track, one quietly into the land. Places like this don't ask for much. They don't try to impress you. They simply wait, as they always have. And if you take the time, they begin to reveal themselves. Welcome to the Drunken Rambles. 'Cause I'm the Drunken Rambler. Okay, we start off our hike at the Griffin Inn, which is actually the oldest building in the Gilvore area. It was only built in 1881, which shows that Gilvore as a village, as a little town, didn't exist until the Industrial Revolution. Prior to that, it would have been just agriculture, the odd farm scattered here and there. It was quite a remote area, but the village and town of Gilvore grew up around the coal mines. Now we're starting off our hike here, heading for up Myndd y Gaer, which translates as Fortress Mountain, heading towards the ruins of St. Peter's Supermontum on the top of Myndd y Gaer, which is a medieval church dating to around the 13th century. But crucially, beneath the church there are earlier structures which suggests that the site was important long before the church was built.
Walking the fields, pipe and whisky at hand, rambles never end as planned. 'Cause I'm the Drunken Rambler, sipping each in mile. I'm the Drunken Rambler, always got a smile.
Now there's a couple of walkers there. This mountainside, this land has been opened up due to the development of the wind farm that now sits on top of Myndd y Gaer. When I was young, walking up here was quite arduous and you never saw anyone else, but since the development of the wind farm, suitable roads have been built leading upwards to the wind farm to allow access to heavy plant machinery, and it's really opened up the countryside. There's an old farmhouse there, or rather a new farmhouse, built on the site of an older farmhouse. I can remember the original farmhouse there when I was a kid. What's going on there then? We're looking down now at Mountain View, which is a new estate which is built in between Tonrevel and Gilvore, and I believe the estate down below it is Ford Dannebryn. But talking of the ruins of the old church at St. Peter's Supermontum, which is what we visit in, it has links to the King Arthur legend, and two historians, Alan Wilson and Baram Blackett, claimed in the early 1980s. There's walkers there again, look. It's March, it's freezing cold and he's wearing shorts, and go figure. But they believed that the site has links to the legend of King Arthur. They believed that Arthur wasn't a myth at all, that the stories have built up around a real Welsh ruler, and that he was buried at St. Peter's. There's our walkers again. And you can see the turbines there. Looking back towards the village now, Tonrevel, Gilvore, all visible there. I'm filming this on a Nikon P1000, which has got an incredible zoom, so I'm able to zoom in and out, which it's a capable camera. I love it. We're going to cut off the main path now, the new path, and go down onto the old path, and you can see those walkers there, the bloke in shorts with freezing legs. Right away you can see the differences. Bit of flooding here. We've had a lot of rain lately. Beautiful scenery though, absolutely stunning. And zooming in on the walkers, look, just to show you what the camera's capable of. It's incredible. These cameras, these P1000s, Nikon P1000s, are actually famous for the photographs they can do of the moon. Believe it or not, you can zoom in on the moon, set it on a tripod, zoom in on the moon and actually pick out details in the moon, such as craters. It's basically a telescope with a camera attached. We're now leading down the narrower path, which is part of the old path which has been worn into the mountain for over the centuries of use. There's another shot there of the wind turbines. Couple of sheep there.
Couple of sheep there.
That's what I just said.
Probably contestants in Married at First Sight Wales.
Being Welsh, I can make that type of joke.
Curiously there. But as I say, since she got a little lamb with her, so she may be a bit skittish, so we'll pass with care.
So we're now going to cross this bridge which has been put up. This is a fairly new bridge, probably put up around the same time that the wind turbines were put on the mountainside, because that was part of the deal to allow the wind farm to be built, that they had to provide rights of way, and where they had to cut across rights of way, they had to ensure that the right of way remained open. And fair play on them. I'm not a lover of these turbines on the mountains. I think they're ugly, but they have opened up the scene. What a stunning view there again. It's breathtaking, isn't it, this area? Very close now to the top, approaching the wind farm. These
up ahead we'll diverge to the left, and then go straight through the middle of that little path you can see there, which will take us right up onto the top there, where it's quite possible on a clear day to see right over the Bristol Channel.
Yeah, so we're now going to walk in amongst the wind turbines. The photograph you see and the images you see don't really give the full extent of the size of these things. They're absolutely huge. There's my shot of my cheap hiking boots from Amazon, £20, but they do the job. They're wonderful, in fact, comfortable. And there we have the wind farm in all its glory. So starting back down the path now. Yeah, you don't need to spend a fortune on hiking boots. I mean, like I say, I bought these boots off Amazon that I'm wearing and just saw in this video for like 20 quid. They keep your feet dry, they're comfortable. I don't know how long they last, but 20 quid, it's no big deal. So that building there is I imagine that's got all the technical machinery inside to allow them to take data from the turbines or whatever they do in there. Giving another view now of all we can see. That over there, I believe, is Watstown. So it's quite a distance away. We get a very good view of the much of the Rhondda valleys from this mountain. Mountain view there again. Now we're looking up at the turbines whooshing around in the wind.
The gate there is chained, so but I think
there's another gate.
There's another gate over here. I was going to jump over there. But there's another gate here we can go through, and of course the rules of the country, whenever you open a gate, always ensure you close it.
Listen to that man, he knows what he's talking about. Gilvore, Goch, Henry Vaughan Estate in the distance there. Look at the size on these things. Lovely cloud formations as well. This was the first find day.
Walking the fields, pipe and whisky at hand. Rambles never end as planned. 'Cause I'm the drunken rambler, sipping each in mile. I'm the drunken rambler, always got a smile.
Incidentally, the song you just heard, I wrote the lyrics to that, worked the tune out, and using artificial intelligence, put it to music. The vocal is not... That's an old video of me up this mountain.
Now as we come up over this section here, we should see the ruins of the old church, because they're just over the rise here. So we're walking across the fields now. I know exactly where I am. I've been up here so many times. But the reason I've come at it from this end is because there was a gate and I didn't want to go climbing fences, which is what I would have done many years ago. But it's absolutely beautiful.
So now we're coming up over the rise, and very shortly now we'll see the ruins of St. Peter's Church. In fact, there they are.
Right ahead of us. And there they are. That is all that remains of St. Peter's Church. As we get closer, you'll see some of the old gravestones that still exist. There's a gravestone there actually that someone has propped up against the wall because it would have been hit over. So let's get down there.
You really get a sense of history when you're sitting on top of this mountain looking at these ruins, a sense that so much has gone on here before you and so much will go on after you. Looking out over the Bristol Channel there. It's a very hazy day, so the pictures are not as clear as they could be. But it just shows what this camera is capable of. I don't believe I'm operating on full zoom there. And I'm moving the camera at speed, so it's blurring here, but another view there of the church, and there are some people there. You see a lot of people now on the mountain since the development of the wind farm has opened it all up. When I used to come up here when I was a kid, there'd never be anyone here. But these days it's not unusual to see people. Lovely black sheep there. And a little lamb. Beautiful.
Walking the fields, pipe and whisky at hand. Rambles never end as planned. 'Cause I'm the drunken rambler.
We're in such a secluded spot that they never would have been visited except for regular hikers like myself.
Oh, catch up, mate. I said that about 10 minutes ago.
So much thanks largely to the development that has happened on here with the wind farm that people now come up here quite regularly, and we can see the cracking zone when it's coming up. You can see people in there.
We zoomed in there. We've still got some distance to go before we actually get to the church. We're taking another look there of the scenery out over the Bristol Channel. It really is a beautiful area. And the P1000, Nikon P1000 is a good camera. A couple of trees there. How long have those trees stood there, grown there? How much history have they seen? Like sentinels. Must have a thing for them. I've taken several shots of them there. There's another. Now we're in amongst the graveyard. You can see some old gravestones there. John of Coy Church. Of course, this area was historically in the parish of Coy Church. And there are the ruins of the old church, another gravestone there. I'm sure I'll start talking on camera now. And this is switched to video. Here lieth the body of Mary Roberts, daughter of David Roberts. 1775, the lady passed away, aged 29. And there are the remaining structures of the old medieval church. The sense of history you get standing next to this is quite incredible. Makes you feel small. 29 years, look, she died. Mary Roberts, daughter of David Roberts, of this parish. August. It's 1775. Last part of the more modern structure, 1775, the church actually dates way back into the medieval period. Taking a sip of my whisky by here as I'm doing the narration, while I am the Drunken Rambler, of course. Shaky camera work there. I'm trying to focus on another stone. Thomas Lewis. When I was young, a kid,
Around here, looking
a
at
lot
the
of
church.
these stones were still standing. This is the back entrance to the church. The front entrance is there.
The hallway was here. Seeing the church was looking out on was this.
Beautiful view. So now I'm going to go into the church here. But yeah, when I was younger, a lot of these stones were still standing, and I visit this at least once a year, several times a year, to be honest. And every time I come here, there seems to be less and less of it. So this video documenting the ruins may, in the future, take on some historical significance. I've got to get better with it. Age 78, that was quite an age to live to back in the 1700s. Another this shared a grave with David Roberts, who died at the age of 59. David Roberts, of course, was the husband of Mary Roberts from the previous gravestone that the only gravestone that is still complete, which we saw a few minutes ago. These gravestones is weathered over the few hundred years they've been here. Lots of the Roberts family are buried in this graveyard. So we're going to go into the grave in a minute. I'm just obviously trying to zoom in to get as much detail from the stones as I can to give the viewer the sense of how old this place is and how important it was at one time. Another person there, look, died at 1768. Mary, the wife of John of this parish. Can't see a name on there. There's Richard and Catherine. We can't see no surname. We're going into the church now. Looking out at what would have been the rear entrance there. And there's the Drunken Rambler. Taking a shot from his zip flask. And whoops, someone pops up.
Irish whiskey. But as I say, I visited this place. Oh shit, you scared the shit out of me.
There's historical evidence that St. Peter's Church back in the day was a favourite of the bards of Glamorgan, and even as late as the mid-18th century it was very much in use. There were a total of 14 marriages being performed here in the period between 1736 and 1740, so it was a very, very busy and much used church. The surviving gravestones of those buried around the church mark the last resting places of those who lived in the area. One such stone, now leaning against the boundary wall of the church ruins, reads, "Here lieth the body of Mary Roberts, daughter of David Roberts of this parish, who died in August 1775, aged just 29 years. Now, during the early 1990s, the ruins of St. Peter's Church was at the centre of an unlikely controversy which has resulted in an enduring standoff between the archaeological establishment and two knowledgeable amateur archaeologists, Alan Wilson and Baram Blackett. Both men have since passed away. But in 1983 they proposed their theory that the lost stronghold of Cae Caradog, the fortress of Caradog I, son of Arch, who fought the Romans in 42 to 51 AD, was actually situated on the mountainside a stone's throw from St. Peter's. Their argument was based on a close study of old maps and the associated field name records. They went on to claim that on exploring the ruins of Lambeth Church, that is St. Peter's Church, the spiritual site associated with Cae Caradog, they had discovered the memorial stone to the British King Arthur. These discoveries were regarded, what you would expect, with considerable scepticism by the archaeological establishment. So in 1990, Wilson and Blackett invited Dr. Eric Talbot of Glasgow University and a team of professional archaeologists to examine the site. I personally got to know Eric Talbot quite well. I met him at the original archaeological dig, and then he owned a second-hand bookshop in Pennygride, which I used to frequent, and he ended up running a shop down in Pontypridd, which again I used to frequent. So I knew Eric Talbot quite well, and he was a very, very knowledgeable gentleman. Rest in peace, Eric Talbot. Now, the dig discovered evidence of two earlier building phases beneath the existing ruins. There was a solid rectangular building covering an earlier beehive hermitage, which seemed to date from the early Celtic Christian period. It was at this time that the local man, Richard Melbourne of Maesteg, discovered a small electrum cross bearing the inscription Pro Anima Artoris, and excuse my Latin there, a discovery which only served to deepen the scepticism of many professionals for many reasons. But it's too much to go into here, but if you want to, you can jump down the rabbit hole and follow a Google trail. Just Google the St. Peter's Church and King Arthur and you'll hear much about the controversy. But the result is that there is still no formal reference whatsoever to anything at St. Peter's predating the 12th century. Meanwhile, Wilson and Blackett purchased the ruins and had a standoff with a local farmer who owns the surrounding land, which also complicated the situation and prevented the possibility of further exploration of the site. It didn't help that when the original archaeological dig was going on, the archaeologists were driven away by a fierce storm, and during the time they were away from the dig, the legal action was taken by the local farmer against Wilson and Blackett, and the dig was stopped. The graveyard was left in a horrendous state. There were skeletal remains left all over the grounds of the church, and you can see that in these pictures here. But it's an interesting story. Did King Arthur have links to this small little St. Peter's Church, which rests above Gilvore one way, Brynner, Llanaran and Pencoed the other, and Coy Church in yet another direction? It's an interesting story. Well, that was quite amusing. I'm standing exactly where I am now, talking into camera. A bit of the video because I wanted to talk about the time I came up here in the 90s and there was an excavation going on for the search for King Arthur. Some of the information, believe me or not, I will try and put some of the information about that into this video. But I was standing here talking away to camera in the middle of an ancient graveyard, and all of a sudden someone came through there and said, "Alright mate," and then he jumped out of my skin.
hand. Rambled never end as planned, 'cause I'm the drunken rambler, sipping each in my